Welcome everybody. I'm glad you can join us today. Today we're going to talk about the differences between the Garmin Forerunner series and the Apple Watch. Now, what I'd like to do is, first of all, I'm going to be talking about the high-end versions of these. So for the Apple Watch, I'm going to be talking about the Apple Watch with LTE version. And for the Garmin, I'm going to be talking about the 945, 935 range, not like the lower Forerunner model. So just the high-end models. Okay, so I've been talking about these two watches for years. I've had multiple versions of the Garmin ecosystem, multiple versions of Apple Watch. So I've been using both of these for years. I've been using them consistently, constantly comparing them. I've been back and forth about what I prefer and when I prefer each of them. So I would just like to really narrow it down and talk about the advantages and disadvantages of each of these watches, because things have changed. You know, they've both changed. A lot has changed over the last 2 to 3 years with software and hardware. So I just want to talk about some of those features, talk about the differences. We're going to run through a lot of different things today. All right, let's go. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about today is heart rate. Each of these devices measures your heart rate all day long and during activity. Now, Garmin will calculate your heart rate 24/7, like every second, whereas Apple only calculates your heart rate like every 5 minutes or so. But what I've noticed, if you look at the average resting rate over time, very, very, very similar. And so are the graphs. So the way they're calculating heart rate is very similar. Now, when you're actually working out, how does the heart rate work on both of them? The one thing that I will hit Apple on, and this is maybe just something that's personal to me, is that for some reason, whenever I wear the Apple Watch on my wrist and I do an activity like running, the heart rate will die out after like a minute, and there'll be like a 5-minute pause where there's just no heart rate, then it comes back on. That doesn't happen with the Garmin watch. Now, the thing I want to warn you about is this could be something that happens on my wrist. Because as you know, these optical heart rate sensors on wrist can vary. Like if you're moving your wrist, or if the watch just isn't built for your wrist. Whereas like the Apple Watch might work 100% on someone, just the shape and size of their wrist, versus me, which it doesn't seem to like. Whereas the Garmin works 100% of the time on my wrist. I very rarely ever have issues. Okay, next thing. As I already just started talking about working out, let's get into working out. Okay, so I'm not going to go through every type of workout these things have, because they each have a million different types. Okay, so they each have every kind of workout you're going to do, there's something for it. And if you're just doing like a cardio workout, or like when I do like a HIIT or something, I'll just put cardio in. So there's always like an other or a cardio if you can't find your workout. All right, so they all have GPS, they all connect heart rate, all that kind of stuff during workouts, but there are some differences. Okay, so let's start off with running. So for running, on Garmin, you can change you have a lot more options in the Garmin watch in general as far as like what details you can view on your watch. But overall for running, I'd say that they're very, very, very similar. You've got your heart rate, you've got your cadence, you got your pace, you got your time, distance, GPS. You've got the basic building blocks. Now Garmin will add some more statistics, which can be helpful, especially if you're wearing like a foot pod or something like that and want to know more about like your stride length, or you want to get into running power, then you're going to need a Garmin for that. So that's a big difference that Garmin has in running. Now biking, let's talk biking. Okay, so biking, there is a significant difference in biking. I think for the average person for biking, you're going to be just fine on either one. The thing that the Apple Watch lacks when it comes to biking is a power meter. There is no power meter you can connect to the Apple Watch. So if you're talking about anything with power, Apple Watch is just out. That's for indoor or outdoor biking. And there's just no power meter you can connect to it. So that's a significant disadvantage for those who are serious bikers. But for most people, guess what? You got the GPS, you got the heart rate, you're good to go for biking. Okay. And then the only other activity I really want to hit on here is swimming, because a lot of these people, a lot of people are using these for tries, and these are the 3 main activities. So for swimming, I think they're both really excellent, both pretty much identical. Garmin used to not calculate heart rate while you swam, but now they do. which I think is nice. I think it's a good feature, and Apple Watch has always done that. I think they're both very good. I do a lot of pool swimming and GPS swimming with my Garmin and Apple Watch. I have a fantastic time with both of them. I think they're both really good for swimming. Okay, next thing. While I've been talking a little bit about like when I was on the bike, I was talking about the power meter. I just want to kind of go back to third-party connections. So, when you were talking about third-party devices, like what do these connect to? Apple Watch is really limited about what third-party devices it connects to. It can connect to Apple Watch. It also, like surprisingly, does a really good job of connecting to software like Zwift when I'm running. So you can use it for virtual runs for Zwift, whereas Garmin literally connects to everything. Whether it's Bluetooth or an ANT Plus connection, it's going to connect to it. So you're pretty good whether you're using power meters, chest straps, it's going to connect to your Garmin watch. Apple, you really got to dig in and make sure like that specific model of that item and that type is going to connect to your Apple Watch, because there's a lot of issues there with it. If you're not interested in connecting to any third-party devices, it doesn't make a difference to you. But I did just want to bring that up because that can be a make or break thing for some. Then just to add to that, since I'm talking about third-party devices, if we're talking about third-party apps, so let's talk about the apps themselves that each of these have, and then the third-party analysis that you can get from other software, and then we'll get into some of the other features like health, battery life, LTE, all that kind of good stuff. Okay, so first of all, the apps for these. So Apple has Apple Health, and they have a watch app. Garmin has Garmin Connect. Apple Health, I think, has improved significantly over the last 6 months. I actually enjoy the app. It used to be really clunky and terrible. I wouldn't say it's like awesome right now, but it's much, much, much better. They're starting to give you, it's much easier to search. You don't have to click like 400 times to find something. And they're also giving you insights, giving you more like what's kind of been happening recently with you, like your steps and all that stuff is like right there on the main screen. So it's a lot more intuitive, but it's still missing some stuff. It's definitely not Garmin Connect's app. And then you have the Apple Watch app and the Apple Health app. So you've got like these, multiple, literally three apps for my Apple Watch, which are my workouts, my Apple Health, and then my watch app. It's like, why do I need these 10 apps? Like, while it's cool that there's an activity app and I can get all my workout details in there, like I'd rather that just be an Apple Health and not have two apps. And then for all my watch stuff, it's like a completely separate app. So you got 3 apps, and it's a lot to take in. It really is. So for Garmin, you have Garmin Connect. Garmin Connect is actually, I think, is a beautiful, best workout display app there is. I mean, I sound like I'm selling Garmin right now, but the app is, I really enjoy Garmin Connect. Now, the thing about Garmin Connect is that they don't actually display all of the data. You have to go and log into their website version, Garmin Connect, which has more data than the app itself, which I wish wasn't like that. I wish the app on the phone did have it has nearly everything. It has 90% of everything, but not 100%. So I did wish there was that option, but I am glad that you can go in and do that. Now, a big disadvantage that Apple has is there is no online presence. It's all on the phone app, which is fine as long as it has everything there, and it does. Something I should mention when we're talking about these apps and what they display and all the information is that with Garmin, it's very easy to delete a workout and then upload a new workout. With Apple, it's a little more of a process to delete stuff, but you can delete it and you can upload an activity, but it does require you having a third-party app that you can buy, like HealthFit or RunGap. They're very inexpensive, so it's really not a big deal. So it can be done pretty easily now. 2 or 3 years ago, I probably would have said I gave Apple a big thumbs down there, but I think it's gotten easy enough and cheap enough to where like it's really a non-issue now. So you can do that kind of stuff. Okay, so that's talking about their apps themselves. Now let's talk about that third-party software I was just talking about. So, one of the things I've always said is if you really need all the workout statistics, you have to go with Garmin. Whereas if you care more about the smartwatch, you probably go with Apple. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But one of the things I will recognize is that Apple and Garmin both work with all the main pieces of software like Strava, Training Peaks. Garmin Golden Cheetah, all the big pieces of software that people use to analyze their workout metrics can be done with whether you're using Apple or Garmin. And if you're using that software to rely on data, it doesn't really matter if you ran using your Garmin or your Apple Watch. You're going to be able to pull it into Training Peaks and analyze it from there. So I think that's something to be said, for each of these devices, is that if you're analyzing it via a third party, it starts to matter less which you're using. Unless, of course, like you need that power meter, it's only going to connect to your Garmin watch. Okay, next thing. One of the big things, so these are some big differences between the two when I start talking about health. So what do I mean when I'm talking about health? I'm not just talking about working out. I'm talking about what does the watch do itself. So, if you remember like 2 to 3 years ago, Apple introduced their incident fall detection and they're going to detect like a high heart rate and stuff like that. Those are things that Garmin has now added. So if you have the latest Garmin watch, you're going to get that kind of information. But what I found having the Apple Watch for several years is I actually have the fall detection turned off. I don't need that. I can see why it'd be great for certain people, but it's not going to apply to someone who's kind of like an athlete and is getting this for working out and measuring their health. The high and low heart rate notification, I guess, is nice, but again, it's not something I've ever used. Those features are really only useful if you're going to need them, but they're not something I need. As far as health, I feel like Apple Watch is pushing more towards it's kind of strange because I feel like their watch is geared towards like the teens, 20s, 30s, 40s crowd. But a lot of the health things that they've added seem to be geared towards like the 60s, 70s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s crowd, which is very strange because I feel like that younger generation is who's using the watch. But let's talk about some of the health things Apple has and some of the health things Garmin has. So some of the health things Apple has, well, I already mentioned the incident fall. You can check like the EKG thing, which is nice if you were to have an EKG problem, but again, I don't. So I never used that feature. I used it like once when I first got my watch, when I first got that version of the operating system. You just don't use it at all, pretty much. So they have the fall detection and stuff like that. But there are two cool pretty new health features that I think are really, really, really great. And one of these will lead into a discussion about Garmin too. So the first health feature that I want to talk about is the Noise app. I think that, so the Noise app for Apple, basically what it is if there's loud noises, it kind of can warn you like, hey, you're in a too loud of environment. I think this app is actually really, really, really cool on my watch. For example, if I'm outside doing yard work, a lot of times I mean to wear headphones, like when I mow the lawn or when I'm hedging my bushes, or I'm using like my leaf blower or any kind of like power tools like my drill and stuff like that. I mean to wear headphones, but I'll tell you what, I forget like 90% of the time. I'll start my lawnmower up, boom, Apple Watch is like high noise notification. And I'm like, oh, thank goodness I was able to put my headphones on. I play guitar. When I'm playing guitar, if I have my, my amp, because I play an electric guitar, if I have my amp up too loud, it'll tell me. And I know like, oh, okay, you know what, I should probably turn that down just a little bit. I actually really enjoy that app. I think it's awesome. I like it's such a simple feature, and yet I find I use it all the time. It's really cool. I really like that app. The other app they have is, so this is how, let's move into measure, because this is the last thing I wanted to talk about with Apple and health, is stress. So the way that Apple measures stress, so they have something called, so they don't actually measure stress like by all day long. They have something called, two actually things. One is called the Breathe app, and the other is your heart rate variability, or HRV. So the Breathe app is like a breathing, like meditation, like breathe for 1 to 5 minutes. I hate that it's only 5 minutes long. I wish they had like a 20-minute option for those that want to meditate, but they don't. It's only 5 minutes. But the cool thing about using the Breathe app is it will produce an HRV number. And additionally, Apple Watch will randomly take your HRV throughout the day. If you're not familiar what HRV is, HRV is stands for heart rate variability. It's the time in between your heart rates. It's a very, very useful feature in addition to your resting and average daily heart rate. It's probably almost more useful than both of those two pieces, depending on what kind of data you're looking at. It can tell you if you're recovered from a workout. It can tell you all kinds of neat things. So you have a daily HRV number, which is awesome. And I can use Apple Watch to take like a morning HRV reading every day, or a morning and night, or a morning, afternoon, and night by just using the Breathe app. Boom, I get an HRV reading. I think that's an extremely useful metric. Now, Garmin does it a little differently when they measure stress. And then we'll get into Garmin's health. So Garmin does not give you an HRV number, which I find very, very, very disappointing for a workout watch. I really think they need to give you a wrist-based HRV number. I guarantee for the Forerunner 955, the version that's rumored to come out this year or next year, it probably will have that. But as of right now, if you want an HRV number from Garmin, you have to wear a chest strap, which is kind of a pain. And I do actually take an HRV chest strap every morning, which is why I know it's kind of a pain, because it really is. But it's the only way to do it. Now, what Garmin does do, which is actually awesome, and I freaking love it, they have two ways to measure stress, really. They have a general stress app. The stress app takes like your heart rate variability, your sleep, exercise, everything, and puts it into an app that basically like a little graph that shows you how stressed you are throughout the day. When your HRV is low and recovering, it shows you that high. Oh, this app is beautiful. And they've actually improved it about 2 years back when they introduced the Vivo Smart 4, and now it's on all the latest models, something called body battery. And body battery is basically assigns a number to that stress. So it tells you like, how ready are you this morning? Like, did you sleep well? If you slept well, your body battery is going to be way up because your HRV was low overnight, and it increased your body battery. So you're like recharged. It's like giving you like a body metric, battery metric. Very cool, and I really love this feature. So I think that, so as far as like stress and health in general, the two ways that each of these watches tell you if you're recovered or healthy or give you a readiness number, I think that Garmin is more clear about it, because I think a lot of Apple Watch users have no clue what the HRV is unless you read about it. Whereas body battery is pretty self-intuitive, that you see your number, you know it can go to 100, and that means you're fully charged. So I think that Garmin's doing a better job on the health-wise, giving you like a readiness number. I like it. I just wish Garmin would also include the HRV number that they're already calculating. Garmin, if you're watching this, just include the number. I don't get it. But so that's where I am between those two on health. So I think Garmin's doing a better job, but I do like the Apple HRV. I think it's extremely useful. So there you go for that. All right, next thing I want to talk about is sleep. Apple still does not, like, you have to get an app to monitor sleep, but there's a bunch of free ones, and when you get it, between that and Garmin, they both measure your sleep. They tell you your REM, deep, light sleep. As far as whether a watch itself actually can correctly measure your sleep well, I think they do an okay job. What I'm more interested there is really like the patterns. Like, what is the pattern of my sleeping patterns? And they both do a good job of telling me, like, if I've had a really bad night's sleep or a really good night. I think they both do a good job of that. Where they can mess up, I think, is that in between. Like, they can't really tell if you kind of had a good sleep or kind of had a bad sleep. I think it does a bad job of that. Additionally, if you're like sleeping and it's like pushing on the watch, it's going to be messed up for that whole entire time that you were pushing on the watch. One of the cool things Garmin does do at night while you're sleeping is measure your oxygen level, which I think is awesome, but I also think it's kind of inaccurate, because mine will go down to like 80 something every night. And even if I just sit still and measure it, it'll say like 95, but like if I have like the finger thing on at the doctor's, it always says like 98 or 99. So I know like the watch is a little inaccurate with Garmin there doing that. Okay, a few other things I just want to talk about quick, because I know this is getting long, and I hate when videos are too long, right? Okay, but there's just so many features these two things have that it makes it so hard. Okay, music. They both play music. They both can connect to your watch, to your phone, and play whatever you're playing on your phone. Spotify is like the main thing people use. They both connect to Spotify. The advantage Garmin has is it connects to Spotify much better, and then I can like download songs. Whereas Apple has a lot of issues with that, and I cannot do that unless I'm paying for iTunes. So for the Apple Watch, I actually just use Pandora. And for Garmin, I use Spotify. So it just depends like what I'm using that day. I think they both offer good options for music. They both connect to Bluetooth headphones easily. I have no issues there. So I'm enjoying both of them for that. I don't need to bring my phone along when I go for a run or something like that. But that leads into one of the, I think, big advantages Apple has is that it does have LTE connectivity. So if you're paying for the LTE connectivity, I think they say it's like $10 a month, but I get a bill for like $14 a month because I have to pay there's like taxes and fees and whatever else, FCC fee on there. So it's like an extra $4 that they didn't tell you about, but it is like $14 a month. But I do love the fact that I can run without my phone and still have like emergency, still get text, still have to call if I need to, but I can have like my music too. And I get that I can download it on Garmin, but it's not the same thing. Now some people say like I don't care about the LTE. I can just bring my phone with me everywhere, and I agree with you 99% of the time. But I'm a surfer too, and guess what? When I'm out there surfing in the water, I can't have my phone on me, and I've gotten injured surfing, and I mean like seriously injured surfing. If you can see this on my hand right now, hold my hand up, you can see a nice little scar there. That was like 18 or 19 stitches where sliced completely through my hand. I could see the fat, muscle, everything in there in the water. I was very lucky because it was like 6 a.m. The lifeguards happened to be training right where I got injured. But I've also had concussions out in the water. I've had to rescue many people out in the water. Having a device that connects for emergencies while I'm surfing is worth the money and worth 100% the $14 a month that I'm paying. So not having LTE on my Garmin basically means I also have to have an Apple Watch because I need that emergency connectivity. It's one of the reasons I have an Apple Watch is for the LTE. If Garmin were to come out with that, it might pull me over there a little bit, but I really, really, really need the LTE. I really like it, and I use it for that feature. It's also cool to have just the smartphone ability that the Apple Watch has that Garmin doesn't. Like on Garmin, I get my text notifications. It tells me if someone's calling, but I can't respond really. With Apple Watch, I can be like, hey man, I'll see you at 6. And it'll send it right to, just talk. You know how many times I'm in the grocery store and someone sends me a message, I don't feel like pulling my phone out because I don't want to get it all dirty from the cart and all the stuff, especially with coronavirus and everything, and I can just be like, hey, I'll talk to you. It's completely hands-free way of texting. Really nice. I really like that. And I think finally, just the last thing I want to bring up here, is just battery life. And Garmin has a significantly days or weeks, depending on your use, of battery life. Whereas Apple Watch, no matter what I do, I charge it every night. I mean, it's literally got to be charged every night. And that's fine. It's not that big of a deal. I just pop it on the charger. But that also means I don't wear my Apple Watch to sleep ever. And I actually don't prefer wearing a big watch to sleep anyway. I actually use a Vivo Smart 4 for sleeping because I think it does a good job of tracking and has all the body battery and all that cool stuff on it. Because it's such a small, little, thin device. I don't like wearing a big watch to sleep. But Apple Watch, I really can't. It'd be difficult. I'd have to find a time each day to charge it, which I just do at night. So what does that mean for working out? Well, it can impact you. I think if you're running a marathon, you probably be okay. Probably. Any more than that, no way. You gotta get a Garmin. Your Apple Watch is not gonna last. The battery won't last. If you're trying to get your Apple Watch battery to run GPS music and track a 6 to 8 hour workout, it's not gonna happen. Whereas Garmin is designed for that. People use it for triathlons, and some people can run a triathlon. Some people are doing them really fast, but some are getting 14, some are getting very high hours, and it will last for that whole time. So you know that you're going to have something that works. So that's a big consideration as well. So overall, what do I think? I think each of these has some advantages. I mean, there are some big reasons. There's a reason why I have each of these devices. I cannot have just one. I think that if Garmin added LTE, I would 100% switch to Garmin 100% of the time because I'm big into working out. But if I didn't, if I wasn't as serious into tracking my metrics and statistics and everything like I am, I think Apple Watch is great for many, many, many users who are working out and doing things. And you get the advantage of all the cool smartphone stuff like talk to text, and it's going to track your bikes and runs and all that stuff. And if you need a little more stats, hey, pop it into Strava, pay for their Summit features, and you've got some metrics to tell you what your load is and stuff like that. So, you can even get some of that. So I think for most people, either one is going to be just as good. I think if you definitely don't need LTE, and you're big into any stats, Garmin, hands down. If you need the LTE Apple Watch, that's a big make or break feature to me. But so could the device connectivity, because if you're talking about a power meter, you don't even think about the Apple Watch. Just go right to Garmin. So those are my feelings. I really, really, really enjoy both of these for different reasons. They're both really cool pieces. I think they just speak to different audiences unless you're me, because as of right now, I've got both of them. I'm wearing 2 watches. I'm not doing it for fun. It's not cheap either to have both of them, because I'm trying to buy an Apple Watch every year because they keep remaking it, and it's a new one. At least Garmin, their releases are more every 2 years. But yeah, it's a solid $1,000 a year on average that I'm spending on these devices and the new headphones and everything else. So anyway, if you have any questions, let me know. Please subscribe. I hope you have a good day and stay safe. Later all.